That you shouldn't be drunk. Taking 25 selfies in the last 10 minutes. 26. Yeah, I'm good. I go. All right.
That's the deal, right?
scale when we sell them whole. And when the cops ask you questions, you tell them no. It's the facts of life, drop context, the price. Niggas laying on your crib like a satellite. They say, you too violent, you ain't rapping right. When I can really watch a brick and I can rap it right. To get money, it's a lot of shit you sacrifice. This popcorn to bring a dead block back to life. And I ain't going back to jail, I put a hit on him. I felt cage shooting in his face and spit on him. Pro meth got me stuck in first gear. I came home from jail, I was broke my first year. My mom gave me applications. We're queer. When I walked outside and put work there. I had a dream, I had a red phantom. But in real life, trying to duck the fan cameras. I know some broke niggas that killed for a bread sandwich. Your girl didn't beat him with a sledgehammer. I'm in the strip club, 100 bottles, pulling up. Last time I made it rain, the bitch bought a house. To get a work back to him if it's short an ounce. So when you cook up, you never got the water out. I hope a long shine light on my mom's grave. I wish I knew the way I could take my mom's place. Remember when I left coke on my mom's plate? And then she kicked me out. That was 9-8. I got a lot of big dreams that I can't fix. I know a lot of coke fiends, so I became rich. We sell the same drug, but we ain't got the same flip. We got the same gun, but we ain't got the same clip. I buy the loony, and you sipping on the same zip. So ain't the gun, then we kiss you with the same lips. I'm down Mexico, talking about distribution. I took 100 grand loss, and I'm just recouping. They shot me 10 times, they wasn't stupid. I hope they can't catch AIDS and buy some lupus. I'm the type to shoot my gun if I hear noise. So I got my pockets on steroids. I done some fucked up shit, I got no regrets. Why they say they really rap? They ain't show me yet. Heard they say I just rap, they don't know me yet. I'm a Morgan pay homage cause they owe me that. What's wrong with him? The oldest nigga that did that shit, uptown, Southtown, bitch. I'm popping shit in your blood. Fuck that, nigga. Yeah, right. You know you was hype. I got your right hand. I got your right hand up off that song right there. Hey, I'm gonna tell AR Ab that too. Hey, put your stuff on there, man. We can't play no music. Hey, you know what? Put your stuff on. I'm done rapping. You can't learn from them if you can't listen. That's why they do that one off. Turn the music down next time. Nah. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. That's the way it works. That's the way it works. Throws hard.
I just said it was a tweet. What's the picture when you stop? It's literally my job. All right, let's go. All right.
Sandhu, say hello to Pep. Hey, Kyle. How's it going? Can I help? Right guys, I'm going to build that up. I'll do some more live streaming this week.
Floyd wouldn't be working a little bit too much. I can do it. Because every kid's going to be like, oh, this is my chance. Yeah, even the new kids, they're just going to like that stuff. That's not easy. I mean, I would say now it's my favorite. But it's not easy, guys. It's not. I know that. Yeah. He has that, so you can't just, you have to, he probably, I don't know, Coach Morris, you have to know, like again, the boxing, it's just like, you know, in the MMA world, it's still so the boxing is pretty much the same, you can't just, you can't just jump in, like everybody else, you can just jump in, it's, even if you were Michael Jordan, you go in the basement, you're going to get criticized. So you have to know, like when I brought Floyd to the and then you guys were bringing that stuff, pretty much beat them or lost because probably. But it took me like to bring them in. Because respect is because you gotta respect them. Like actually, the female division, I'm excited about it because now that Ella is the champ, I think she's pretty solid. Man. I mean, like I think they took the right thing to do and they worked on it. But I play a little against that'd be interesting. I think her Johnson is up right up there, you know.
Where are we going now? In there, yeah?
Not right now. We're just teamed up with back to LA and then Sweden on the guard first. We'll buy some others.
Yeah, we got LAX to one way, 11 hours. After LA, 11 hours.
What's that?
Yeah, at least go sit down and then by the time you get up, you start your day.
All the water is I haven't seen his legs.
Anything off that view?
You look cut. Do you see his coming up?
Thanks, man. Thank you. You're a good man. And make the champion of the world right there. The first is almost like, and then you got, that's why the double leg or the double back handle. Because you're in the southpaw side, right? Now, remember how packed they're in the doubles? If you do the doubles, it'll work for you. Spin. To do the pack handle. So you can still do the pack handle. You see how you see how the range is right there? If they pull away from the double. So there's basically no escape from them. They pull away, you have offense. They try to get in, you have offense. Does that make sense? It's easy. It's an easy thing to read. Yeah. Can't attack you with my right hand here. If you're here, right? And then this is the battle when I turn. You can put you in the and then jab up and next to your twist. If you feel a follow-up, flying knee follow-up, that could all work. The starter is how they react to this, right? Because if they, so if they react to that upper, jab, upper. Now look. Elbow, close, jab, upper, easy. They don't want to see it coming. They don't think it's coming. Because they're not thinking that way. Okay? They can do knee. If they break away, sparring, you're strengthening each other. We just see where the inside funnels the I'll try to go here. That was perfect. That was perfect. Upper elbow. You can go here. And if you hook that comes down from the sand, you can jab up. You can be upper hook, you can under. So you can go upper hook under. Upper. Dream killer.
What are you guys doing?
He's making the newest ever. He said 5 years he's gonna be the next world champion.
You're gonna go to speed back next?
Yeah, so I'll go to the right. I would say plan on it, I'll let you know.
Everybody's ready. Everybody's ready. When you go like this, it was like real, because there's nobody there. You right here. I'm gonna hit you right here. Boom. I don't know why you do all the way there. You say, so you stop right there. Yeah.
My buddy Danny Austin, just right there.
Well, oh yeah, here I am. I gotta get out on that camera.
Yeah. Don't go all the way.
We gotta listen to cambiar.
Right there. That's the way it's going. If I'm hitting you, I'm not going to. What am I hitting? I don't know. I got to look at you and see where I'm hitting. Boom, I see you. You throw your punch and you do this, you do that. What I do, then I'm shooting a basketball, the rim is here, and you do it. Why do you know the ball going? You got it? You understand what I mean? Yeah. Your eye, the box, the target is in front of you. So you got to always look at the target. You can't look here and hit here. That's the way. Every punch you throw, look at it.
So you know this one, right? Chamatkar, this is the Floyd. He would put the opponent's posters here and then put a axe.
The only thing I don't like is 4 months later, too much emphasis on this.
It's on green right now. So that's a circuit. And then normally you have to do that. And she already did her first workout in the morning. So the hardest part again in MMA, I think it's the reason why people like pain with the injuries. You do have to work on everything. You can't just specify working on one thing. Mixed martial arts, the hard thing is her conditioning. Even though we're playing it's not about that. Can you work on all the things? And the funny thing is, you don't even know what you're doing. You may use everything, you may use only like 3 things. That's what I think about this way, guys, because you're all in my head. Hardest sport to people, too many ways to win, and there's too many ways to lose. Even in boxing, I would say it's a gamble other than getting robbed. But MMA, it's such a young sport that with so many different ways to win, you know, like I'm guessing for the Rampage against Chico, what if Rampage I told you, I don't know.
Maybe you heard me by the time you tell. A lot of times fighters go on and they don't maybe right here. Nothing one. You don't know. So you need to follow through.
And again, you got to be everything's so hard. The guy who comes up with great formula that's out of bed can make a lot of money. But I mean, 90%, like the proven thing, 90%, because it's most of the time it's 50-50. Like the great formula, it'll be fun article for every meeting member to write, but honestly, I don't know who can win that after the night. It's 50-50. Nobody's really a big one. You know?
Yeah.
That's what I heard, like 200. That's what I'm saying. We have to tell them. Honestly, I think that's pretty good if you want to watch in the boxing now, I'm very tough. 30 seconds.
What's your timeline here? I do have to be conscious.
That's it, basically. She's finished now.
I literally want to buy that.
That's the souvenir, right?
Put that up on
Yeah, because it's quieter here, right?
Or outside.
If my Wi-Fi extends to outside. Anna Julaton, she just finished her workout, so we're just figuring out a little space area where we can do the interview. Let her come out and we'll figure it out, I suppose.
What's that?
So let her come out here and then we'll figure it out from there, I suppose.
I mean,
the Floyd thing with USA Boxing next to it.
That's pretty sweet, right?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Big Paul on Monday. Probably just want something that shows you have boxing, right?
Yeah. Good shout. Good shout, Daniel. Good shout.
I'm gonna piss on that card. I don't want that. They should have put some money here and put a couple pounds in there.
I'm sure you plugged in my phone.
You're low on battery.
Hey, come back, man. Yeah, the shot, not the gun. No.
You want to go 107?
Whenever you want.
So
I'm done after this.
you want to grab we'll grab an Uber to that spot, grab some food, whatever, take some money, grab a couple drinks, I'll just do work, and then I'll grab the Uber right there. It's probably like $20 out there. Done. Jim's like, I think I'm stuck with these Swedish guys. And I'm like, yeah, you are. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Are you still my guy?
No $10 for young ones.
It's the thought that counts, bro.
Hanging up there, man.
Come on, man. You gotta take care of the guys you said here. You said $1, huh? That's $1. It's the thought that counts, bro. It means a lot. It's the thought that counts. My daughter, her little cousin, and the girl played softball with us. They were all together today. No, I sent them out to get lunch. Chloe had went to the doctor. Just check on the ears. She had two ears. I said two ears. She's younger, but they all came out. They just checked out my ears.
I'm at 10%. We'll make it very good.
Oh, I'll put 8.
I can grab you over there. I'll grab it to John's.
So they bought that 18 pack. Both I tried to go hard, man. Hey, both. You see me going over? He went over. Yeah, I gave you one there. You want another? I'm picking up. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. Both is thinking about buying a 2-liter Pepsi, and I see you get a cup. I'm going to drink 2 cups.
Money mail. That's the lowercase password, that's right.
Woo!
Probably right up the story. Space one fact that. Small little bit. So we're thinking of just having you over here now.
Oh, you said you gotta go in. You gotta go to the bar. Huh? Oh, wrong. The meeting's finished. Watching Larry. Over there, Juan.
Whenever you get to go.
So that was pretty cool, and just to kind of see you go through kind of your circuit and everything. You're from the Bay, so in terms of when you're out here in Vegas, like, do you stay for long stretches? Are you permanently based out here now, or what's the situation?
Oh no, I still go back and forth. Yeah, what I love about training in Las Vegas is the altitude and the climate.
Yeah.
The environment's completely different as well, so it's a great way to actually focus. A lot of people would think about going to the Strip and going to the casinos and stuff like that, but it is a desert, so if you go to the proper places for training, it's a perfect way to just kind of get in the zone.
I remember speaking to you about this a couple of years ago, and it's just like trying to get other female bodies to kind of work out with, you know, both for boxing and for MMA. So how do you find that here in this gym? Do you get plenty of training partners that are kind of your size and frame and stuff like that?
Oh, 100%. The game has been changing. I remember back in when I used to train at Wildcard, when I was going up for the titles and defending the titles and things like that. I was one of the rare ones. There wasn't a lot of females. Versus now, you look at it, it's mixed. So it's great to see that. It's great to see a lot more people supportive about the whole thing. I think it's starting to sway across the board in MMA and also in boxing. So it's nice to get that.
Well, it's been cool to see you kind of make the transition from, like, you know, you made the move to Bellator. We'll talk about, you know, your debut in a second, but just overall, generally, working with Bellator, working with the team and Scott Coker, what's that experience been for you, having had to work with other promoters in the past, and how do you compare the two?
Well, I gotta say, in the Scott Coker regime, they're very, very organized, very professional, very experienced. What I love about it is I can directly talk to the employees. If I have a problem with Rich Chu, I can talk to him. My management team, Russell Collins can call him, Angelo Reyes can call him, Brett Raymer can call him, and it's no problem. And it helps a lot, especially for fighters. You know, we always want to get the activity, we want to keep building our brand, and we want to get our name out there. And so I think Bellator, even though it's a smaller company, they understand the mentality of fighters.
And Scott Coker is definitely one of those guys that's been open to, you know, dipping into other sports, and obviously they've got the kickboxing brand and things of that nature. So have you actually spoken to him about perhaps, you know, doing some MMA, but perhaps also doing some boxing, perhaps under the Bellator umbrella?
Yeah, 100%. There's something in the works. Can't say too much about it right now, but what I can say is on my first contract, I am allowed to box on top of the MMA. Just Bellator has the right in terms of scheduling, but they work closely with also my boxing promoter, Alan Tremblay. So it's pretty cool.
So that's cool. So would that be like Bellator boxing, or would it be something separate, a different intention? How does that work out?
You know, I'm not too sure because Spike TV is also in transitions with turning into Bellator or Paramount TV. I'm not sure how the schematics is going with that, so stay tuned.
So you're saying stay tuned. You're saying you're not going to say too much, but I mean, like, there is a boxer and an MMA fighter in Heather who, you know, there's a parallel there. Is that what you're looking at right now?
Oh, 100%. I think it makes sense. I think it's something that people want to see. Because of the whole Mayweather fighting Conor McGregor, knocking him out, you know, it totally just opened up the doors for combat athletes altogether. So with me and Heather, we have a storyline, we have a connection, we both have experience in boxing, we've ventured into MMA, and I think that's something that, I mean, it hasn't been done yet. So if we can get into the cage, we can get into the ring, I think it's something that will not only excite the fans, but also create more opportunities for fighters.
So you'd want to kind of do it back-to-back with either?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
So one MMA fight and then one boxing fight?
Yeah, it hasn't been done. I would love to be the first one to do it, so.
All right, so let's just see how that would work out. So let's talk about the MMA fight, right?
Sure.
Just the MMA fight itself, you and Heather, how would you break that down, and how would you approach the MMA fight with Heather?
You know, it's funny because in MMA, as I've grown to learn, is that you don't necessarily have to have a whole lot of technique, and I'm not trying to disrespect any of the fighters because a lot of them have tremendous technique. It's 4-ounce gloves, you get into the cage, and you scrap. You get hit with a lucky shot, that could be the end of it. You slip and fall, and if someone, you know, grabs your back, you get into your rear naked, you know, you can tap and you get submitted. You know, anything can happen. So with that said, you know, in boxing you have to be a lot more calculated. You know, with every round, because you have the 8-ounce gloves, you can have your best punch, and if you hit the other person, and they're still standing, they still have time to knock you out. You know what I mean? We have tremendous fights in boxing. Like one of my favorites is Diego Corrales fighting Castillo. I don't know if you guys have watched that. I think Diego Corrales gets knocked down in like the 8th or 9th round. He gets knocked down twice, comes back, knocks out Castillo in the next round. So there's a lot of back and forth battles. In terms of me and Heather, I think we'll be able to have a lot of explosiveness. She likes to come forward. I want to come forward. I started spiking up some beef, and she's tagging along with it. I heard her. She said a couple of things, and so I think we want to go at it. And I think it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have 4-ounce gloves. It's gonna be a war. So if you guys love the blood, if you love the slams, if you have the trash talking, this is gonna be the fight, especially with 2 women. So we got a lot of heart.
What have you made of her kind of performances in MMA thus far?
She's exciting. She likes to come forward. Whether she gets hit 35 stitches, it doesn't matter. She likes to come forward. So, and that's what excites the crowd. Everyone loves to see the goriness, the blood, the cuts, her smiling, saying, "Yeah, let's bring it." And so that's just a fight game. Yeah.
She struggled with leg kicks a little bit, but you've got that boxing background. But if you get in there with her, like, how inclined are you towards actually, using the leg kicks versus just saying, like, shoot, let's box with 4-ounce gloves and see what happens?
I'm going to leave all of that to my coach, Angelo Reyes. There's definitely a lot of boxing lines that's very intricate. Same goes with kicking. And so just to have the understanding of both and compile it into an actual style is just very high level. So how's that going to clash in? We kind of saw it on her last fight. And so the trick is her and her team going to adapt and get better, or is she just going to get down and grab and be like, you know what, that was a fluke, I'm just going to go with what I'm good at. So we'll see.
Do you have a time frame in mind in terms of when you'd like to fight next, whether it's Heather or somebody else?
Oh, ASAP. Even from my last fight, I didn't really get hurt. The next week I was over in Carnegie Hall in New York, and I received an award. I was all dressed up and everything. No one even knew I had a fight. Come on. But so we were training, right from the get-go, right after the fight. So we're ready to go.
What was that award for?
It was for outstanding Filipino in America. So it's pretty cool. I was the athlete of the year. So
is it that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is it fun? There's been this history with Heather. You guys have been linked together a bunch of times.
100%.
You're in MMA now, and like, I'm not trying to disparage boxing here, but like, let's be real. It's easier to duck people in boxing than it is in MMA. Is it nice to kind of know that you're in MMA?
Well, it's from the outside, it's very easy to say that, but I just gotta say the business aspect is completely different. You know what I mean? In terms of ducking, there's ducking in anything. So in terms of this, I'm just glad that Bellator is able to see the connection with it, and Paramount is they're excited about it. I think the fans are excited. I think she's excited about it. I'm excited about it. It just makes sense. And in terms of the history of just combat sports altogether, it's the same thing Muhammad Ali went through with Joe Frazier and George Foreman, and you have Sugar Ray Leonard, that whole era, Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler. The list goes on and on. A fighter can't excel in any sport unless you're in the proper division. You have someone like Floyd Mayweather. He started out like 130. He was a real small guy, and he ends up fighting at 147. Even like the best MMA fighter knocks him out. You know what I mean? So it all depends on your matchup. So with this, I think this just makes sense for me and Heather to fight.
I actually wanted to speak to you a little bit about the Filipino background, because I'm from London. I was speaking to Angela earlier on, and you haven't fought in England before, right?
No.
There's a massive Filipino community in England. I've got tons of Filipino friends, and Bellator always have one of their tentpole events take place in London, and I know that's going to be, I think, tentatively scheduled for around July time. Is that something that you'd be down for, to come over to London and fight there?
100%. It's going to be, I know it's going to be a roller coaster in terms of just adjusting to the time and just getting used to the atmosphere, the food, the lingo, and the language. I would love to do it. I would love. In boxing, I'm a road warrior. I've fought in all sorts of different countries, and the UK. Over there, I would love to venture out over there and just meet new people. So, and I would love to kind of see how the boxing world is, because I know you guys had that huge fight with Anthony Joshua and Vladimir Klitschko earlier this year, 90,000 deep in Wembley Stadium. My gosh, that's a spectacle.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess it's going to wrap up on you right now, and that is you're now a few years into your professional MMA career, right? How would you compare where you are now compared to where you were at this stage in boxing? How much more do you think you have to give in terms of how many more years do you want to commit to the sport and things of that nature?
It's really hard to say, but I mean, obviously I have a direction. I'm just going to take one fight at a time. The fight game is not forgiving. You can be young, you can be in your 20s, and it could just end just like that from just one wrong move in the cage or in the ring or even outside business-wise. So I have to take it just one day at a time, and I'm just going to be focused on capturing that next fight. So whether it's with Hardy or not, that's where I need to go, and that's what I'm going to focus on. But I think for any dream for any fighter is to capture a title. So I would love to capture a title in MMA and also in boxing at the same time, since my contract allows that. It's definitely a high mountain to climb, but I think just to attempt it is something that most people can't even fathom to even think about. So that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome. Well, look, it was awesome to kind of see you kind of train a little bit here, and we look forward to hopefully seeing Anna Julaton, Heather Hardy in boxing and in MMA in 2018.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you saying my last name correctly.
No worries.
With the accent and everything.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Anna. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Really
you.
awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for the time.
All right, Angelo, do you want to get in the same spot? Maybe just over there.
I'm sorry.
You want me to?
No, you can start getting dressed. No, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay. Oh, Russ wants to listen to how I do this, I guess. Talk all that shit. Right. Fuck you, Fedor.
Angelo, so good to see you. Thanks for inviting us here.
Yeah, it was fun.
At the Mayweather Boxing Club and checking out.
We had everybody here. It looked like an MMA media day. It was cool. It
was awesome.
Yeah.
So listen, so much to talk to you about, because I think now more than ever the MMA and boxing crossover, it's not dying down. If
not
anything,
at all.
It's just escalating, right?
I love it.
Yeah, let's talk about Anna.
Okay.
We'll get to the business and the industry side of things at the moment, but with Anna, Heather Hardy, boxing and MMA, that seems to be what you guys are kind of like gearing for. Was that always kind of the plan when you guys signed the contract with Bellator, is to dip into MMA and boxing under the Bellator umbrella?
Yeah, no, and again, for me, my philosophy in just coaching any of the fighters, whether it's Anna or Frank Mir, is asking them, hey, who is it? Like, I know you'll fight anyone you want to fight, but who is it that you want to fight? And I remember even, before Frank signed with Bellator, he'd always talk to me about, he really wants Fedor. So, so with Anna, she's always wanted to fight Heather Hardy in boxing. For whatever reason, it just didn't work out.
Right.
And then she's watching Heather do a one-off fight for Bellator in June at Madison Square Garden, and she was like, man, that'd be pretty awesome if I signed with Bellator and fought Heather. And then she's like, you know what? If I actually sign with Bellator, then she can't basically run from me anymore, because she has to fight me one way or another. So I think that it just kind of formulated in her head, and I think it became a reality in October when they were both at the Mohegan Sun.
Yep.
And then Anna got to go to Bristol and do the whole headquarters and talk about what fight she really wants. And you guys have heard, I mean, in her head, she feels like, how stupid would you have to be to not have a fight like this happen? It's never been done before. We both have the resume to do it. It's definitely believable for the two of us for an Anna Julaton and a Heather Hardy matchup in MMA, because it's fair. I mean, you just saw what Christina Williams did to Heather Hardy, yep. So Heather Hardy is not a mixed martial artist. And to be honest with you guys, I mean, Heather's going to have to, if that fight does happen and it does materialize, and I hope it does, people are going to find out really quick that Heather has a long way to go when it comes to MMA. So I'm excited about a fight like that happening, just because knowing Anna, and if you've Google searched her, if you've seen her fights on YouTube, she likes to go to war with people that tend to think they can just bully her. Right. And Heather is kind of like that style of a fighter anyway, just kind of comes forward. So I wouldn't be surprised if Anna just sat there. I mean, you guys are watching her do her training. She's at the Mayweather gym. So you're not seeing her like in an MMA gym. So why do you think she's training at the Mayweather gym? Because in my head, I'm thinking, Anna's probably saying to herself, you know what? Why don't I just box the crap out of this girl in a Bellator cage and show everyone what it looks like when two boxers can actually just use hands and box each other. And I can actually totally see a fight like that turning that way. Just because, if Anna takes a hit, from Heather, and it doesn't even rock Anna at all, you're going to see that smile. You're going to see that, it's on now. Like, this is going to be fun, and we can scrap it out. Because that's what Anna wants to be remembered for. You know, she still to this day, you guys know, she fought in front of 40,000 people in Argentina. It's one of the most watched fights. And she fought in Canada, in Toronto. With Freddie Roach and her winning the world title. So she wants an exciting build-up. Right. I know she's excited about Paramount. She's excited about Scott Coker. She's excited about what Bellator is doing. She loves working with the Bellator group. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if you saw two boxers boxing it out in a Bellator cage. You know, what's that for me?
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, I mean, and again, it's no disrespect, but I don't think Heather's good enough to beat her in boxing. So I can't think in my head why I think she would be good enough to beat Anna in MMA. I mean, I get it, anything can happen, but I've never once seen Anna even get rocked. And if Heather's power is supposed to be what's going to scare us, then I think you'll actually, like, my opinion, I think once Heather feels Anna's punches, she's the one that's going to back up. And I would be very surprised if Heather actually sits there and says to herself, no, I'm coming forward the whole way. Because if she does, she might want to add another 35 stitches to the one she has right now. Because honestly, like, you guys saw how fast Anna's hands are. And this is what, December, right after Christmas? Anna's not sitting there trying to nurse a hangover. She's not getting, I mean, she probably weighs like under 130 right now. So this is a very serious athlete. This isn't someone who's like parading around, showing off, you know, her looks and trying to get media attention with being cutesy or sexy. She's like, look, guys, I'm at the Mayweather gym. I'm getting down. I'm training. When I do my jiu-jitsu training, I'm training with people like a Frank Mir. You know, like, she's getting down. Like, this isn't like, hey, I want more media buys. She's like, no, I want to fight you, and I want to hurt you. So,
do you think that proposition would be well received in the Hardy camp? Do you think they're down to fight Anna?
I hope so. I mean, again, what I like about MMA, and I've always liked this about MMA, is you can't really duck anyone in MMA. I mean, I know we've seen, like we want to see Tony Ferguson fight a Conor McGregor, right? And I don't know what the business of the UFC is, but I know for a fact that the way Scott Coker does things is like Michael Venom Page goes, I want to fight Paul Daly, and I'll fight him straight up. Winner gets all the money. And Scott was like, yeah, I could draw up that contract. That's not a problem.
Right.
You know, so I think that Anna herself has asked so much to fight Heather Hardy that I would be very shocked, and the only reason why a fight like that wouldn't happen, in my opinion, is Heather Hardy's just scared. And I don't like to think that Heather is scared, so I think the fight will happen. I mean, that's what I think. I mean, if it doesn't happen, it's definitely because Heather's scared. It's not like, oh, Anna hasn't asked so many times. And usually, again, in MMA, ask and you shall receive, right?
There's no reason for Scott to not.
Yeah, there's no reason for, and it would be fun. Like, guys, wouldn't it be fun for you to watch the two of them scrap it out in MMA, see what happens, and then watch the two of them box, and then see what happens, and that would be a first? I mean, heck, man, if it ends up being a good enough fight, and both fights are fairly close, I'd say let them kickbox too. What the heck, you know? Do 3 sports and 1 at the Paramount Network. It would be fun, you know. But I think Bellator is into that. I mean, like the Grand Prix, I think is a fun event. I know that there'll be hardcore media writers that might not like it a little bit, but I like it because if you're a common fan and you haven't been excited in MMA in a long time, Fedor's a huge name. Frank Mir's a huge name. King Mo is a brand. Chael Sonnen. I mean, come on, man. Everybody knows Chael. Rampage Jackson, right? Big Country, Roy Nelson. I mean, Mitrione just knocked out Fedor. Like, there's so many names in there that Bader being the actual champion, and arguably right now he might be right up there with the best 205er. Because you've seen how Bader's really shown how great he is in Bellator.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you have been interested to see what would happen now if Bader fought Cormier? It'd be interesting, right? Like, it'd be interesting. So that's why
every fight after the AJ fight,
yeah,
looked great.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I think we were talking about that a little bit off camera, where I was saying I think 5 years from now we might see stuff like this, where the Bellator champion will just straight up say, "I'd like to challenge the UFC champion or the one champion," just to see, you know, like what would happen. It would be a fun event, right? Like let's say Frank Mir wins the Bellator Grand Prix. Let's just say, you know, it happens. It's awesome. Wins all 3 fights. who's to say he couldn't just sit there and go, you know what would be fun? I'd like to fight Brandon Vera, who's the one championship heavyweight champion, and let's put it together and let's fight in Japan. Right. What the heck, right? And I think that Scott Coker is such a great promoter. He's not gonna say no to something that makes sense for promotions, for money. So
we've seen them do cross promotion in the UK as well with Bama.
Yeah, that was the last one, and wasn't that kind of a fun card? They're putting it together. So I definitely think that Bellator understands the format of the business of combat sports really well. In my opinion, having to be both in the boxing and in the MMA world, I think that Bellator is closer to doing their deals like how boxing does it. You know, you make fights that the fans want to see that make sense, and versus in the UFC organization we don't. I mean, like Cyborg Holly Holm, I'm glad it's happening, right? Right. But really, it would have been cooler if it was just signed in the summer, and we were doing a ton of build-up between now and the summer, and it just took so long for it to be put together. So, but we will see what will happen on that one. Yeah. I actually think Holly Holm will pull it off, but you never know. MMA, there's so many ways to win. So.
Well, it's quite appropriate that we're here at the Mayweather gym because, as always, Floyd is not out of the headlines, and it's peaked again in the last kind of like week to 10 days, where he essentially said, he was kind of, Dana White said that they were talking to Floyd about doing a deal with the UFC, and then Floyd kind of tantalized about that a little bit, but then he denied it. So you're here on a daily basis. First of all, when you saw the back and forth between Floyd and Dana about a potential deal with the UFC, what were your initial thoughts?
I thought it's fun, man. I mean, like if they're going to pay Floyd $1 billion, that's awesome. like, why not? I mean, Floyd's an amazing athlete, guys. I think that again, are we done already with trying to always say, oh, Floyd can't do that? Floyd just retired undefeated. He did every single thing he was going to do. Nobody's beating him. So if the guy sits there and says, and I'll go in the octagon and I'll beat Conor McGregor or whatever, why not? Why not? Because I'll sit there and I'll go, okay, maybe you think I'm crazy, or maybe you think I'm saying it because I do really like Floyd. But I do remember Ray Mercer knocking out Tim Sylvia in a cage. That did happen, so everybody always talks about, oh, James Toney got trashed by Randy Couture. Yeah, rightfully so. James Toney wasn't working on his legs or his sprawling or any of the moves that you needed to work on against a wrestler. But Ray Mercer went in there with a 1-2, knocked out Tim Sylvia. So is it really that impossible for us to believe that with 4-ounce gloves, if Floyd went 1-2 against Conor and it lands, why couldn't what Conor did to Aldo happen the other way? And Floyd already knocked him out. And Floyd knocked out Conor in a boxing match carrying him. So imagine if, Floyd's not going to try to carry him in a cage. So Floyd might just go in there and go, F it. They paid me $1 billion. I'm just going to go in there and go, and see what happens.
Just to speculate, I guess how I've read the kind of back and forth and the kind of conversations that they've had, perhaps it isn't even to do with Floyd kind of, fighting in MMA in the octagon. I personally think that, with Zuffa boxing around the corner, seeing how well, I suppose, Dana and Leonard and the Mayweather camp work together behind the scenes to promote that Mayweather-McGregor fight, that may be what's on the table, is to discuss a partnership of, using, boxers from this gym that, perhaps, the Zuffa boxing promotion will need to kind of fill out that card and do some sort of, cross-promotion there. I mean, do you think that's a kind of, valid, I suppose, speculation to put on the table? Do you think that's
absolutely? Absolutely. I mean, right? you hit the nail on the head. I mean, and you understand, again, it's what people want to see, right? So if that is possible, that'd be fun. Like, how about Anna represents the Mayweather team and goes and boxes Joanna Jędrzejczyk in Zuffa boxing? Why not? Why not? Let's do these fun kind of cross promotions, right? I could see that as a possibility. I mean, again, Floyd and his team is so smart business-wise that I think they're going to take the best possible deal on any given scenario, and then they're going to go ahead and go for that deal. If it makes money, it's going to make sense to them. And $1 billion is a lot, man. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of too many boxers, other than Floyd maybe, who would turn down $1 billion to jump into a cage or an octagon. I mean,
Yeah.
$1 billion, guys. $1 billion.
Yeah.
You know, so.
There are obviously a lot of boxers who are, you know, sort of making that transition or attempting to, and now MMA fighters want to go. When it comes to specifically like for training for boxing, do you think there is anything that training MMA can help a boxer be a better boxer?
100%. I do. I think that it just has to be done the right way. I think that when you take great athletes, I mean, MMA fighters are amazing athletes. It's just that if they want to go into the boxing arena, they really have to focus on boxing. Mm-hmm. You can't be too. I mean, that's why it's so hard. Like, that's why everybody's still curious about how well Anna would do, because she's now into MMA 3 years into it, respected it, learned it. She's gotten her wrestling aspect down. She's gotten her jiu-jitsu aspect down. She obviously had all the kicking backgrounds, and her boxing is great. I mean, she's one of the best boxers in mixed martial arts right now. But the putting it together is what's taken time.
Right.
You know, actually knowing how to pace it, actually knowing how to look like a Lomachenko, but in a cage. You know, how do you look like a Lomachenko in a cage? Because if George St. Pierre is the most well-rounded that we know, right? I mean, you guys just saw how amazing that was. Comes from a 4-year layoff to knock out the 185 champion. I mean, wow. You know, like, that's right up there with great accomplishments, right? So I do think there are principles that if a boxer were to learn mixed martial arts, that there are principles in there that can help you in your boxing. But if you're going to box, you have to work on the boxing muscles to box. If you're going to do MMA, I think the difference is there's so many different aspects of how to win a fight that you could be like a Heather Hardy who went in there and just pretty much used boxing against an Alice Yager and pulled off a fight that I thought she was losing on the cards, but she pulls off a stoppage with 10 seconds left in New York. Then everybody's like, yay, Heather Hardy's the next big thing. Then she gets knocked out by somebody who's never even had a 5-minute round in her life, in Christina Williams. So MMA is still the toss. You know, it's like, I don't know. You could be this amazing jiu-jitsu expert, but, I mean, we saw Damian Maia fight Tyrone Woodley, and you kind of saw how that played out, right? And then there's still, I mean, I still think that the sport of MMA is so young that the judging aspect is still very crude, in my opinion. Like, you know, it's still so subjective that, like, to this day, I still think Stephen Thompson beat Tyrone Woodley. Just on the basis that Tyrone Woodley was backing up the majority of the time. And Stephen Thompson was using his karate to push him back. So I get it. I mean, I could argue it the other way, sure. But to me, the guy that was pressing the action was Stephen Thompson. So I think the guy who was pressing the action for 25 minutes should be the one being rewarded, not the guy hoping to steal a shot or hoping to steal a takedown. I mean, that would be like in boxing, you know, everybody was getting mad at the Golovkin-Canelo outcome as a draw because they believed that Golovkin was pressing the fight. And even still on something like that, I could argue how close it was just because Golovkin kind of gave up the back end and kind of gave up the front end. So, you know, anything can be done there. But just in MMA, man, there's so many different ways that I still believe that a Floyd could jump in a cage or an octagon.
Yep. And
if he fires a quick combination, catches any one of the fighters in the chin, why is it so impossible to believe? You know? And I know everybody's just going to sit there and think in their head, well, they're just going to grab Floyd and you're just going to take him down. So we're talking about a guy who's, let's say, a billionaire. Let's say Floyd Mayweather is a billionaire. I don't know how much he's worth, but let's say he's a billionaire, right? You don't think he has enough money to hire the right people to teach him how to block a takedown, how to block a kick, and just work on that for about 12 months, and then still keep his hand skills, still keep his tenacity, still keep his conditioning? You know, like it's not like you could tell me it's a complete wash. Right. Oh, you know, versus with the Conor thing, that's why we were all saying, yeah, you haven't really taken boxing that seriously. Because if you did, you'd have done some fights to kind of set you up to see what your pacing is like, right? Yeah. And then let's see how well you do. Because do I believe Conor could be a great boxer? Absolutely. But he has to get like a Freddie Roach to train him. He has to get real boxing trainers to actually train him. And then he has to humble himself and know that boxing is a completely different sport. And I think Floyd is such a good martial artist in his own right with mastering boxing that if he seriously considered $1 billion to go into an octagon or a cage, he would seriously put the money up to learn how to do takedown defense and to learn how to do kicking defenses and still being able to blend it with his hands, you know? So I think the craziest bet should be like 1,000 to 1 odds that Floyd Mayweather scores a submission, you know, because that takes a long time to learn. But Floyd Mayweather winning in a cage or an octagon, that's not impossible.
This is a terrible media question, but do you think it's as funny as I do that there's that bag in the back with Connor's face? And it's just
Oh, no, yeah. You know what? That happens in boxing gyms. That happens all the time, actually. They'll do fun stuff like that. It's just fun. You know, it's not nothing personal. You know, it's I know that one of the fun parts that I like about boxing when the two fighters are really getting at it is they have to kind of get into that mode, you know, like that Marvin Hagler, I'm going to beat you up mode, and it's exciting for everyone, right? But at the end of the day, man, when it's all over and both fighters are safe and they both made a lot of money, then, you know, like I wouldn't be surprised if Connor and Floyd are kicking it in a cruise somewhere, you know, like they made a lot of money. Like, why would you be mad at anybody?
I think they've got their own yacht.
Yeah, that's possible. That's possible.
That's all sweet.
Well, Angelo, listen, again, really appreciate the invitation, kicking it here for a few hours and checking out the gym, checking out Honor training, and obviously giving us your time as well. And yeah, good luck for you guys getting hopefully that Heather Hardy fight in boxing and in MMA.
That would be fun.
That'd be pretty cool, man.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Man.
Thank you.
Nice one, Angelo. Appreciate that, man.
Cool.
I would buy that bag for.
Oh yeah, you can have.